you're saying he's not your first choice of candidate, many Americans feel that they don't want to see this rematch. They don't want a 2020 rerun. But as we sit here now, he says he's running. It appears that he's going to be the Democratic Party's nominee. So between now and November, how does he change the tide when it comes to the economy? How does he switch that messaging? What should he be saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think there's a couple of things that he can't be talking about. I think one is that he has to start with the facts about Trump. He's got to talk to people about the fact that, all Trump supporters want to talk about the national debt, right? So let's have a real conversation about the national debt. Trump put us in a hole of what, $8.4 trillion. I mean, the numbers are subject to change, right? But most places say it's anywhere between 7.2 and 8.4 trillion dollars. What did he do with that money? Not very much. What about Biden? So Biden only put us between 2.9 and they say at the very most 4.8 trillion, right? But Biden also passed the infrastructure bill. This is something that Trump was promising us for years and didn't even attempt to pass, right? Biden got in and he did that in his first 2 years in office, which is amazing. We needed that infrastructure bill passed. Also, yes, he's going to have to talk about women's health and women's rights, right? Understandably, unfortunately, Roe v. Wade got overturned during his presidency, but we also have to talk about who stacked the Supreme Court, right? That was Trump, okay? And then also we have to talk about the fact that the Republicans, they want to get rid of Medicare and Social Security. We have to start talking to people about that because that's the reality, is that I know that things are bad right now for the working class, but unfortunately they could get a hell of a lot worse for the working class. Not just with inflation and not just with what it looks like in our bank accounts, but all the hard-earned money that we've worked for through Medicare and Social Security will and can be wiped out at all to do anything about the student debt crisis, right? So I do think that we can talk about the economy in terms of what Biden has done, but what's more important is using some of these tactics that the Republicans use all the time, right? They're consistently using fear, but we need to do it in a productive way. We need to use fear to help people to understand that things could get a lot worse, and democracy is also one of those things that, we could be running into a situation where we have no elections anymore.
That sounds very grim. And I think the Democratic Party in 2020 used fear to say, you have to vote for President Biden because he's not Trump. But as you and I are talking right now, his favorability is pretty low. It's at 37% according to this Wall Street Journal poll. So how do Democrats get people or get voters excited to vote blue, to vote for the Democratic Party, to support President Biden? Because is it enough to say, hey, well, he's not Trump? Because right now, Trump has a very solid support base in the Republican Party.
He does. And no, it's not enough. And I think that there's a couple of things that Biden can do, right? I think that Biden needs to admit that he is on his way out. I think that will make people feel a lot more comfortable because that's the reality of the situation. And I think that he needs to show that through supporting young people, right? There are plenty of young people running for office across this country, some of them as high as seats for US Senate, for Congress. And if he can get in front of people and say, I'm supporting the next generation. Right now, we're in a situation where democracy's on the line. I can't step back. It's too late. But I also understand that we're in a situation where it is time to pass the baton forward and we need to support young people. I think that will go really far for him. I think people will really respect that. I think just the fact that he doesn't talk about this at all. And it's like, I think a lot of young people are sitting here thinking, is he going to die in office, right? Like, is that what we want for this generation? And that's not what people want. People are tired of the same old, average age of being in Congress is 55, average age of being in the US Senate, I believe is somewhere around like 60, 65. That's, I think young people are frustrated by that. I think that they want something different. And honestly, not just young people. I think older people are frustrated by it too. Yeah, essentially, people are looking for younger representation They're looking for folks that are going to be around to see their grandkids grow and to be there to represent them. And same thing with their own children. And I think that when they see Biden, that doesn't resonate with them. And so I think that Biden could definitely step up and start doing some of that work. But then also, I think that he needs to start talking about the facts with Trump, right? The messaging cannot just be I'm not Trump, vote for me, right? That's not strong enough messaging. We have to talk about the working class struggle, which Biden has not done very much. We need to talk about the elimination of women's rights. We need to talk about what we need to talk about what the Republicans are trying to do, as I said, with Medicare, with Social Security. We need to talk about the speech that Trump has, how he uses terminology that's similar to Hitler, which also Biden has not talked about. And ultimately, we need to talk about what does the loss of democracy actually look like. I think it's just, when we say like we're going to lose democracy, that feels very airy to people, right? We need to talk about what that looks like. Well, that looks like we could potentially have no elections anymore, right? Do we want to live in a country where we are a true dictatorship, where we have no elections, we don't vote? These are things we need to start talking about. And also, I think Biden needs to also talk about the fact that the very people right now who are supporting Trump will be the first people that are affected by all this, right? His white, older male supporters are not going to be affected like the Mexican population in El Paso, where he's skyrocketing statistically right now, right? There are a lot of folks that are illegal immigrants that are in El Paso, Texas right now, where Trump is doing amazingly well in the polls. And those are going to be the first people that are affected. And so we need to, as a Democratic Party, we need to be talking about that. We need to be talking about, and we need to start trying to get those people over to our side, which means that we also have to change the strategy of how we're reaching people. It can't just be a digital campaign. We need to get out there and we need to talk to people on college campuses, at the doors, on the phone. And Biden's team just simply has not been doing that.